呢隻就美國嘅舊船啊，靚Nana，好舊嘅，但係而家就擺出嚟，啲Mississippi河嗰啲船嚟嘅，油，啊呢個又係一個，呢個又係，我係拍電影俾你睇，啊好似西部牛仔嗰啲咁格。今日係13號。天氣都幾凍，喺船裏頭，我上第3層多住咗。丹麥我唔要啊！呢啲喺度慢慢嘆下早餐。喺呢度就係嗰個碼頭。
And he had good dogs there. And one day he was feeding his dogs, and this girl walked out of the woods. He'd never seen her before in his life. Walked right up to him, said, "John, this is how much money I got. I want to win the Iditarod sometime in the future. My name is Susan Butcher. Would you sell me some dogs?" Well, he did. He said, "You go, girl," and she went. 4 Iditarod victories, 17 Iditarods in all, only out of the top 10, 2 of those 17 years. And she won in 86, 87, 88, and again in 1990. And we are going to meet her husband in a little while and stop at her home. Of course, Susan is not here. As you know, cancer got her in 2005. Amazing people. Fellow that lives here studied the Dall sheep for 40 years. Works for Fish and Game. Oh, the geese are back. See them over there? That is Usus stificus plasticus. The real ones land there and say, you know, why are you guys so quiet? And Wayne Heinrich, neat guy. So, I mean, you just never know. And of course, young people come up and they want to build a log home. We'll help them do it. Some of them really want to go back to the old days of doing it. The young man that built this one coming up now on the right, he wanted to have that old-time experience, so he cut his trees about 40 miles from here, skidded them up the river when the river was frozen, hand-peeled every inch of every one of those logs and custom fit the log above into the log below. In 1980, it's 2x6 walls. That's a frame home with a pretty wood look. And the big windows. Look what's on the back porch. You see that hot tub? Oh my goodness. Californians, what a great idea. They come streaking out of the back door of that house on a January night, pitch dark, 35 below, jump in that hot water, lean back, watching Northern Lights dance overhead. Huh? How about that for a thrill? No? How about the thrill of getting out of that thing soaking wet and running back in the house? That will stiffen your flip-flops up in record time. And if I stayed in fee simple ownership. You guys own 65% of it, so we're sure glad you came to see the property. About an acre on the river right now, I'm told. And then it kind of varies how close you are to the infrastructure. Yeah. And about $150 a square foot if you want to figure out coming up. This used to be a very busy freight departure center. In fact, the little green boat is the seawolf here. Way back in the trees, you'll see the little gray boat kind of going back to nature. That's the Pelican. That's another.
It was stuck in the ice. They tried to put on one extra freight run at the end of the summer, and they messed up. They got stuck in the Yukon River, frozen in, and they knew that the big icebergs during breakup in the spring would crush that old wooden vessel. So my grandfather was a deckhand on the boat, and some other folks went out
the boat's above. So our last shot is significant. Before we go up in the wheelhouse here, that is the steamer Yukon, and she called at Fairbanks and many of the ports all the way to Dawson City. Beautiful boat, used wood for fuel, and that boat was crushed to kindling wood in 1943 when the ice broke up on the Tanana River with terrific violence. They'd frozen it in. We have an artifact of that vessel, and we're going to throw it up to the wheelhouse right now because we've got two excellent captains on the job, and Captain Ryan, what's going on up there?
Yeah, Jay, this is the wheelhouse. Simon and I are operating the boat as we speak, and Simon's got his hands on our
on the video right now. Fowlsfield was a busy place, and Bill Johnson on the video, he's going to take off on those big overstuffed wheels, the Tundra tires, in a little Piper Super Cub, looks like a candy cane, and all he needs is 150 feet of wheels. You can fly on skis at this time of year because things are thawed out early. A lot of the guys have put their floats on already. So as Bill comes in for a landing and manages to miss the septic tank pipes and the canoe and the truck and the burn barrel and a few other things, we're going to switch live now in just a second. Downriver, our good friend Steve Knatzer is in his Super Cub, and he's going to take off over here on the port side, fly a neat circle around the boat, land right here, and then Captain Ryan, who's also a licensed pilot, we'll get a chance to visit with him. So here comes Steve on the first flight of the year, over on the port side, left side, and this is a 19 Figos in these tricky conditions. Now, while we watch it, I'll tell you a little story about Bill Johnson, the fellow we saw flying the wheels. He was sitting in his kitchen over here by the runway one January morning, 47 below zero. Cup of coffee, his phone rang, it was the hospital. They said, Billy, did you fly this morning? He said, what's up? Well, we got a young mother up on the Yukon River just went out. Can you imagine that kid's birth certificate? Where were you born, son? Well, how about airborne - we were busy at the time. That's what's done. That's what's down at the courthouse. Now, you have been reality showed to death. You're kind of getting the idea, if you've watched any of the Alaskan shows, that this is very important today, just like it was back then. And that's true. These bush pilots are critical to literally our survival in this part of the world. We love them. And they do a great job. Now, Steve is out ahead of us here over on the starboard this time. He's turning right in front, and watch this dramatic descent. This is called a slip turn. And it looks like he's falling out of the sky sideways here.
Wow.
What he'll do is kind of yin and yang a little bit. And then the touchdown is my favorite part, because now with the nose up, he's going to feel his way down. Just like when you put the car in the garage, you want to watch his touchdown.
touchdown.
Oh, isn't that pretty? Nobody does it better. So, we're going to see if all the communications work. And your captain upstairs, Captain Ryan, is not only licensed to fly fixed wing, but also rotary wing aircraft. So I'm going to let two pilots go at it here. And Captain Ryan, whenever you're ready.
Discovery 3 calling 24 Alpha. Steve, it was a long winter, but I see you haven't lost your touch. How was it up there today?
It's a beautiful morning. It's good to be back.
Area that had no roads, and you had to fly in and out. It was your only way of getting in and out of your community. In fact, you told me you learned how to fly before you had your driver's license. Is that right?
Yes, I was raised out on the Yukon River.
It's an amazing little plane. It's the one that really most planes out here prefer because of what you showed us, the ability to take off and land in such a short distance. What makes this particular airplane able to perform so rapidly?
Well, the Piper Super Cub's design is 30s and 40s technology. It's a very lightweight aircraft, so it's real good when it's equipped on float for getting in and out of the small area lakes and rivers, and then also in the summer you'll see them with wheels where we'll operate them on sandbars and ridge tops. And in the winter months, they'll go to skis for the ice and snow, so just a very versatile aircraft for year-round operation up here and supply the remote areas of the
They've been around for a long time. They're antiques. I mean, Piper quit making them new in the 80s, I guess, and I know that the one you're flying today was built in 1951 and you restored it. Is that a challenge for you guys to maintain and operate these vintage aircraft?
For sale,
we're lucky enough to still have manufacturer-built parts for them, so it's just a proven design that's in the first trip of the season. It's B24 Alpha Clear.
再睇下個水上飛機師。
Guys, thanks, and great to have Chig back on the job again. He's a pretty amazing guy, and very typical of a lot of the folks up here. The interesting statistic I find is that 1 in 60 of us Alaskans are licensed to fly. There are about 750,000 of us in round numbers. 1 in 60 is licensed to fly because of the lack of roads. And he's one of the best. So once again, he's going to fire up that 150 horsepower Lycoming engine. There he goes. We might get a little wing wave here and back. And thank you, Steve, for that flight. By Halloween, he's going to be on skis. This river will have 3 feet of ice on it by trick or treat. So you have your choice. What kind of nutcase wants to live in a place like this? Well, there are about 95 kilometers and 2 ex-wives. But the neat thing is, we all pull and harness together. And there's that young couple on the right in the wheelhouse of Discovery 1, the little boat they built. And he got downsized in the late 40s. The whole freighting thing went down to Nenana, and Jim didn't want to leave Fairbanks. This is where their home was. How folks lived in the old days, the pioneer days, and how our native neighbors have lived in this part. That's kind of and you'll get a chance to meet some Alaskans who we're very proud of. In fact, right over here are Miss Judy and Miss Janine, 2 members of the family. Your captain's mom and aunt, and we just have the Binkley family all over the place in this part of the world. We will actually meet the matriarch, I think, coming back too, and we're very proud to introduce you to Mary B. But it was gold that brought Caucasians here in any kind of numbers at all in 1902. It was a discovery by an Italian fellow up in the hills that got the Fairbanks Gold Rush going. And one of the things, like we use a pressure washer today, they use this hydraulic style mining. You've seen it in the movies, the big nozzles. Well, they did that up here. In fact,
2014 season, it's going to be a wonderful year, and it's always so much fun to celebrate time out at GA. And we had a good winter, it was fun.
Hey, we did, and we'll have to get together and catch up when we're not working, but we're working today. And what is that you have in your hand?
Well, these are the youngest members of Trailbreaker 2, and they haven't even got their eyes open yet. They were born last week, and you know, when they're first born, we want to make sure that they bond with us as well as just spending our whole lives together working with them. So as you can see, they're getting a lot of personal attention. Each day they're picked up and they already know us and trust us, and they want to go on adventures with us, and so that's really a great way for us to establish our bonding with them.
Well, I mentioned, you know, that bond is so important, and I mentioned this is one of my favorite stops because very soon they're going to
It would be their moms checking them out. They would just be kind of moving very in a very small area, but they mature so quickly that pretty soon this whole little area will be under control, and then it's time for them to step out into the bigger world. And so what we do is we encourage them to make it across the log. Well, when they're little guys, they can't do it, of course, so then we help them across the log. But the day comes when they eventually make it, and then we give them lots of praise on the other side. And the puppies learn a couple things from that. They learn, number one, we're not asking them to do anything that's impossible. But number two, and just as important, is we'll always be there to help.
when you put a harness on them, is that a traumatic thing at all?
It's not a traumatic thing at all. I mean, first of all, these guys, that's their love, that's their life, that's what they've been doing with people for thousands of years, but also we're preparing them incrementally. Like when you put a saddle on a horse, that's a pretty big surprise for them. But with these dogs, having established that bond, and when they're a little bit older, let's say 5-6 months of age, as they're going on long walks in the woods with us, there's older dogs out in front, so they know how to chase the leader. And so when we put them in harness for the first time, they see that same lead dog up front that they've been running around out on the trails with, and their instinct is to go forward. So it's a real natural progression for the dogs, and virtually all of them on the first run is a success. And I'm pretty thrilled about being able to go out and give them a little spin.
This is going to be fun for us. We timed this right, so we'll pass the puppies, and gosh, it's going to be fun watching them grow up. And are y'all set to hit the trail?
We are. We're going to take out 8 dogs this morning. And just hold on a second.
Chuẩn bị phỏ rồi.
Bắt chiếc cáo.
Mấy
Well,
cái
what
đỉnh
we're
con
going to
chuyển
do
hậu
this morning is we're actually hooking up 8 dogs because they've got so much power and it's a little bit muddy that we're gonna run that group this morning because they have so much enthusiasm, because they're at the height of their physical ability. They've been running all winter long, so they're very powerful. But because it's summertime, basically, we don't have any snow, so we have to be able to simulate the dogs are hitched up in pairs. Each pair has a job. The leaders, of course, are out front, and all the rest of the dogs provide power. And as you're seeing, with each dog we add, the power becomes greater, and so we don't need any extra power. So what we've done with this four-wheeler, you can see it probably from the boat, is we removed the engine. There's nothing in there to help them go forward. It's strictly dog power. And we've also, what I've had to do though, is I've had to reinforce the brakes because that's the only way I have of slowing them down. And it's not a matter of making them go fast anymore. It's a matter of slowing them down so that we can safely negotiate the trails, because there's some pretty sharp corners, but the dogs have to learn how to do that. And it's a pretty amazing undertaking to see these guys evolve, because some of these dogs, it might be their first full season of running, and so all that enthusiasm is translated in every run. And what we'll eventually have to do is we'll eventually have to teach them how to control that desire a little bit so that we can safely negotiate the trail. I'm kind of holding them back here right now, but I'll go on a run. I'll give you a call from the other side.
Yeah, well, hang on tight.
All right.
Been a long winter. No yapping once you say we don't say right. The old French Canadian trappers used to say marche. Building steam, and now
spent money over here. We're going into the headwood, but these guys are really making 19 miles an hour. But today, we're letting them run to show you their full potential. I gotta go. I'll give them a command, and then I'll call you on the way back.
Like I said, Ha is left, G is right. It's all verbal. He has no brains, he has no mechanical means of controlling that team. So if those leaders don't listen, you're off to China or somewhere else. You know? I mean, it's all verbal. It's an amazing system, and it works great. Now they're coming back. They made the turn. And
You have to conserve energy on the outbound leg so that you can use it on the way back to accelerate and pass teams that could be in front of you, or keep your hard-charging competitors behind you. It's a great team with a great future, and I look forward to working with them this winter. I'll tell you more when I get back.
Now, Susan was out across the Yukon River one February morning, a good run, and Granite was up front, and she said, Granite G, and he didn't go right, he went to the left. She was over by the left-hand bank. She said, Granite G, and he went to the left again. She said, this dog's telling me something. She let him pull the sled off the ice. The minute they cleared, the ice collapsed. The ice broke up, they would have died right there if she had not felt that dog was trying to tell him something. So this is an amazing relationship. There's the big finish. All right, good job. And of course, I'm so excited to see I didn't start to watch, so we'll have a baseline time tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'm staying back here. Usually I go and pet them right away because you want to give them, let them know what a good job they've done. But we were practicing. Get this, Chig, we were practicing last night. Me and the whole four-wheeler down into the river. And I didn't have a pedal wheel like these guys. So you can see our skid marks over there. So believe me, there's a lot of oomph in these guys.
And we hit the flowers and hit the showers after a run like that.
Yeah, she's going to be in charge of all the flowers this summer, and she started these really early, so I think she's got a green thumb. She was
she's getting some help too, I think, on the fertilizer.
Organic here.
Well, that was a great run, but of course we're not done with dogs, are we?
No, but it's actually the fun has just begun because we're going to bring down 6 or 8. How many we have today, Laura? We have 6 dogs down there today. They're all real friendly, all veterans, and there'll be a pen, and you'll be able to get up close and pet them if you like. And it should be a lot of fun, and I hope you take advantage of that opportunity. All the girls are going to be down there too, so lots of people to talk to.
I know that people are going to have questions, and of course they've got the answer because all your crew here are veterans of these longer races, aren't they?
Yes, that's right.
That's neat. Well, listen, of course we're going to look forward to that, and I'm going to tell the folks a little bit about this wonderful book that you and Susan wrote for young people, the story of Granite and her remarkable relationship, and I'm wondering if we could put you to work. Would you be willing to sign some books if folks brought them to you?
Well, absolutely. I've got to say, over the last few years, one of the things that's meant the most to me is when I've been able to share the story of Granite and Susan and their racing career. It's how much it seems to resonate with kids, overcoming adversity and loyalty. And so if any of you guys would like me to personalize a copy for yourselves, children, grandchildren, maybe even a library, it would really be my honor and privilege to do it.
Well, of course, we are so grateful for Susan's life, your life together, this wonderful operation, your daughters and these young ladies who keep it going, and we're blessed to have you in the neighborhood. And David, we won't say goodbye now. We'll just say see you in a little while, and thanks so much for this wonderful tour at Trailbreaker Kennel.
Well, you're more than welcome, and we'll see you downstream.
Yeah.
Down the street. Yeah. Hey, awesome, everybody, and come here to see you ladies, and thank you, dogs.
Everybody's standing with
The interesting story about the Granite and Susan's relationship is there were people who said when he was born, I mentioned he was the run of the litter. He said, you don't want to keep this dog, you're going to get him. And she said, no. I said, Susan, he's not going to make it. She said, no, you let me have him. This is Granite. And she literally sat by his little pen and patted him and willed him to live, and he did live, and he came back and won that third race and the fourth race and lived to be 17 and a half years old. Now, fortunately, she wrote a book about this relationship, and I love this book because I love to read it to young people who might not think they're the coolest kid in school. It has a blue cover. It's called Granite. We have them on the boat, and you can certainly look this over, and we'll have them on shore. David will be glad to personalize a copy if you would like him to when we go ashore. We don't have gift shops on shore and all that sort of thing, but this is something special. And you might enjoy looking it over if you hopefully like to read to the special young people in your life. We hope you do.
Starting to think about coming home, getting closer and closer to the mouth of the Yukon River, and if all went well, he weighs 42 pounds. One of the most beautiful fish swimming. He's going to start to swim back into that glacial film. He will be in there for 30 days. He'll lose about 30 or 40% of his body weight. He will not eat. He'll have his last supper out there in the salt water. And he and his female and male siblings will all make this swim back all the way back to the shallows down up here. And it's a very freaking fish catching machine. The current drives it. It has no motor. And as the salmon is swimming
garage for all those years. Then when we built this boat in 1987, he had the idea to take it in and get it refinished and use it as our ship's wheel as sort of a tribute to all the old boats that he'd worked on as a youth.
Well, now, I know Simon's not that tall. I don't know, Ray, maybe can we pan down or tilt? Oh, okay, there you go. I figured something was going on. That's the same box you stood on, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just kind of more of a collection of individual sloughs and channels and eddies, which when taken as a whole make up the river. And you can see out here, there's all these different channels constantly shifting. Of course, the sandbar in front of us is a great example. All of that glacial silt that the river brings down can deposit us today. It wasn't even here at all 4 years ago. In fact, 4 years ago, it was 30 feet deep just off of our bow, and a main channel came right through here. But the river changed course. The main channel is now about a mile ahead of us.
I remember when you were learning to drive, yeah, we had the 30-foot hole. Now, I don't know if we can get a shot of it. There's a little bit of the silt-laden water sinking in here on the video on the Tanana side, and that's all the glacial flour, the material that's carried along here.
Yeah, it's a different color, a little bit lighter, and as you mentioned, it's the result of those grinding glaciers. As they advance and retreat, they grind the soft metamorphic rock underneath them right down to dust and then carry it on down the river. And you might even see some dust clouds picking up across the river as the wind blows that dry silt across the valley.
Well, I mean, this channel off to the right looks kind of inviting, but we're not going there.
Yeah, well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because my grandfather and my dad and uncles and me even navigated these rivers for years, and it is a challenge because when you have all these different channels, how do you know which ones are deep, which ones are shallow? There's no charts of this river. It changes far too quickly. So
in this case, the outer coat falls off. That kept them warm all winter. Every one of those air strands is hollow inside. There's air trapped in there. But they don't shed it out. That hair minute things warm keeps them afloat. You can't sink a 600-pound bull caribou when he's in water over his head because that coat keeps him afloat. And so they can ford any stream, any river without any problem of sinking and leave that big old fat grizzly, that wolf, that wolverine on the far shore. There's nothing that can outswim a caribou on the earth. And then he gets rid of his when he starts the process in the ruts fall. Or deer who paws the ground. That's how they feed themselves. Because in the winter, lunch or dinner can be under 6 feet of snow, 7 months out of the year. Well, that doesn't stop them at all. And so those big feet are important as a shovel. They spread them out. They can walk on the snow. It's like a built-in snowshoe. They can go right through the water. Now, I have not checked with Fish and Game. For this year, I tried to call, but I couldn't get Kathy to tell me. But last year, she was saying that we had about...
呢隻我哋隻就係有船河，呢個就係 Discover 3號，呢個就6號汽油船河，後邊咁樣推動。嗱，你睇有個毛喺個招手。我哋呢個就碼頭上岸啫，碼頭。
Okay, after. Let's go take a picture, Joe.
They needed more room and look at this beautiful home going up. And an amazing design. They're working hard on it. They're getting one log. So the next time you come, you'll get the chance to see the finished product. But what an amazing addition to the neighborhood. That those white fruit logs, that is my student welcome. And that tree grows in abundance here. And particularly on the south slope where you get most of the sun the year round. And so we're excited about that new addition to the neighborhood. And the fact that they saved the old